PNC News First is presented by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank. Pizza Hut, we're taking pizza where it's never been before. Taco Bell, the only place where you live Moss. Guam Auto Spot. Colgate, the #1 brand recommended by dentists. And IT&E, Life in Motion.
Live from the Broadcast Center, Akata, Tumon, Guam. Broadcasting in Guam and Saipan. Here's Janela Carrera and Clint Rigel with Donna De Jesus and Rebecca Elmore. PNC Sports with Leo Payumo and Weather with Chelsea Cruz. This is PNC News First.
Off a day and good evening, and welcome to PNC's News First. We are live from the Broadcast Center, Acanta, in the heart of Tumon. I'm Janela Carrera. Thanks for joining us. Your top story tonight, Senator Mary Torres has introduced a bill that would increase the term of senators from 2 years to 4 years, but would also cap the number of consecutive terms a senator could serve to 3 terms. PNC's Clint Rigel has more.
In a bipartisan move, Senator Mary Torres and Speaker B.J. Cruz introduced a bill that would change legislative terms from 2 years to 4 years.
4 years will enable you to actually, get a lot of the work that you want to get done. It'll also hold the sitting senators accountable, because you can't use the excuse that I ran out of time or things just didn't work out. If you've got 4 years to do a job, that's plenty good reason to get the job done.
Senator Torres says it's difficult to get a lot done in 2 years, especially when at least 6 months out of the 2-year term is focused on campaigning for re-election. The measure would also place a cap on the number of consecutive terms that a senator can serve to 3 consecutive terms. The Organic Act requires an election for the legislature every 2 years. Senator Torres says this is addressed in her bill by requiring a staggered election. Her bill would require that in 2018 the GEC use a lottery method to select 8 people to serve a 4-year term. General elections for those 8 positions will continue every 4 years thereafter. Also in 2018, 7 people of the 15-person legislature will be selected to serve a 2-year term. Those 7 members serving a 2-year term will be recharacterized into a 4-year term in the 2020 general election, and elections will continue for those 7 positions every 4 years thereafter.
So in the first term, say in 2018, if this bill should become law, you'll have 7 senators that will be running on the ballot at the general election for a 2-year term, and 8 senators running for a 4-year term. The staggered terms ensures that you have continuity, so you never have one large batch leaving at any one time. And then it ensures, much the same way boards are contemplated, that you always want a mix of people with some experience, in the body.
PNC took to the streets to find out what some members of the public think about this proposed bill.
4 years, I think, is too long for them senators right now. Why should you have 4 years, term? I think 3 years is just best, or 2 years is just best.
I like senators to stay more. Longer than the term that they're giving.
I think that giving them more years to their term would give them more time to complete whatever ideas or jobs they want to during their term. Capping it at 3 terms would be good too, to also introduce new ideas and from other senators who want to try some new stuff out.
So there are now 2 competing pieces of legislation, both of which would greatly impact the legislative branch. One, of course, would change the legislature to a part-time legislature, while the other would change terms to 4 years while capping it at 3 consecutive terms. For PNC, I'm Clint Rigel.
All right, thanks, Clint, for that report. In other news, another lawsuit filed against the church, but this time the complaint details sexual abuse not by 1, but by at least 2 other Boy Scout leaders during a camping trip at Ipoh Beach in the 1970s. Here's more.
The most recent case is now the 71st lawsuit to be filed against the Archdiocese of Agana for civil claims of sexual abuse. Like many of the other lawsuits filed, it dates back to the 1970s and details rape, committed by former Guam priest and Boy Scout master Father Louis Briard. The lawsuit was filed by a 54-year-old man with the initials A.N.D., who was represented by attorney David Lujan. A.N.D. says he was just 11 years old at the time he was first raped. It happened in 1974 during a camping trip at Ipoh Beach for a Boy Scout Jamboree session in which each village's Boy Scout troop met at Ipoh Beach during the summer for 2 weeks. One night, according to the complaint, Briard went around the tents and handpicked 10 boys, including A.N.D., took them to a nearby building and sexually abused all the boys. Quote, this happened every night for the remaining 7 days of the Jamboree. Each time, A.N.D. was terrified and cried as Briard sexually molested and raped him, end quote. A&D remained with the Boy Scouts, and the following summer in 1975, he participated in another Jamboree summer camp. Again, according to A&D, Briard repeatedly raped him. Quote, every time A&D resisted and fought back, Briard became more sexual, the complaint states. Finally, on the last night of the summer camp and after the horrendous experience of being abused, A&D says he threatened to report the abuse, but Briard countered that no one would believe him. The lawsuit also identifies another individual by name, Talifofo Troop Scoutmaster Joe Tadella. According to the suit, when A&D attempted to walk home on his own, Tadella stopped him and forced him to go back to camp. And if being raped by a scoutmaster and priest wasn't enough, A&D says when he went back to his tent that night, quote, 2 older scout leaders took turns raping him, end quote.
A&D says in his lawsuit that despite quitting the Boy Scouts that year, he was invited to another Jamboree summer camp the following year. He refused and reported the sexual abuse to Tadella, but says Tadella laughed at him and called him a liar. You can read the complaint at pacificnewscenter.com. In other news, an online petition is circulating urging the governor, the speaker, Public Health Director James Gillen, and Senator Dennis Rodriguez Jr. to, quote, stand up the legal medical cannabis program on Guam, end quote. The petition, which was started by Grassroots Guam, a local advocacy group, was launched in an effort to hold GovGuam accountable for enacting the KC Conception Compassionate Use Act, which was passed overwhelmingly by the people of Guam. Grassroots Guam managing partner Andrea Pelicani states in part via a release, quote, we can't seem to get everyone to sit at the same table and on the same page. Most of what we've heard is that people are busy or there are not enough resources, end quote. Pelicani also writes, quote, our government should never have forgotten that close to 20,000 people came out to vote for this, and the will of the people should be heard. We shouldn't have to keep begging for our public servants to comply with this mandate, end quote. All right, we have more news first coming up. Stay with us.